The bids are in, the gavel is dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right, this is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine auctions, wine retail, and just wine. I, of course, am Jeff Gurn here on our WineBid marketing team. With me, as always, is the illustrious wine auction and wine expert, Paul Walker. Welcome,
You're really
Paul.
going with this every time. You're calling me wine auction and wine expert, which is...
You are a wine expert.
Disagreeing with both of those things now. So,
well, your opinion doesn't really matter to me, except as it relates to wine. And this is not as it relates to wine. This is as it relates to your capabilities and your skills. So anyway, this is our episode where we're going to talk about all the French wine we have coming into auction this week. I'm going to start off with Bordeaux. There was...
Shocker. Jeff's starting off with Bordeaux.
Starting out with Bordeaux, there was just a ton of first growths coming in, a bunch of Lafite, a bunch of Mouton, 90 Latour for 1050, just a massive amount of first growth Bordeaux. We've got an 82 Petrus, one of them in. This one for 35.60, got up to 39.50 in December of 2021. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Like, if you're looking at the Bordeaux that we've got coming into auction, especially those first growths, you know, what is your pick of the litter there? Like, what would you go for if, you know, all things being equal?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of serious stuff coming in, and actually some great vintages from the 90s as well, 80s and 90s, particularly 1990. I noticed there were quite a few. I wrote down, I think, 4 or 5 1990 wines that were in. There's 95 Margaux at 605. Famous 89 Lynch-Bage at 345. That's kind of their top tier wine. 90 L'Evangile at 270. 90 Le Mission 600, which is pretty serious number for that stuff. 90 La Constante, which you and I had a couple of weeks ago.
I was going to point that out. We had that. It was kicking.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Really good. But yeah, that's in this week at 395. And then 90 Collaborate. I noticed there were some under $100, you know, wines from great vintages, which is always fun to find in Bordeaux. So 90 Collaborate for 2 of those at 70. I thought that's a pretty great find.
Did you see the 2000 Vieux Chateau Sarton?
Yeah, I did. I mentioned, I wrote down 70. The 75 and the 2000 are both the same reserve. They're both at 2000.
Yeah, and I was looking at I would probably go with the 2000. You know, just because 23 years of age, I think that one's going to be great. But yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yeah, 75 should be really, really good. That should be great stuff. And that definitely doesn't come up too often. So fun to see those wines just because they're not in every week. And yeah, great Bordeaux selection. Oh, 82 Palmer. Also, I flagged those. There are a couple of those for 370, which I mean, that's a lot. I think Palmer in other vintages, even, you know, really, really good vintages isn't that level, but hey, it's 82. Although I would bet that the 83 is probably drinking better and probably less expensive than the 82 because it's better vintage for Margaux. Don't forget. 01, I also, for Sauternes, we always talk about 2001 because there's always examples, but there's 375s and 750s of Latour Blanche from 01, which I thought were fun. 375s are $40. 750 is always a better deal at 65. So go figure. People like the half bottles, I think, just because they're not going to drink that much. Oh, and then there's a famous Beausejour Dufault in the 1990 Beausejour Dufault. It was, I think this was like a very early, it was one of the only wines from Beausejour Dufault that got 100 points. And so it's always been very expensive, but, you know, it's quite rare. Well, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of other Bordeaux producers, but famous Saint-Emilion from 1990, far and away more expensive than essentially any other vintage that they've ever made. But it's a great, great wine. And so that's always fun to point out because it's in this week too. So, and I'm Clos de Sarp 05. I always like to look for interesting under $100 examples. And 05 Clos de Sarp, there's 3 of those for 95. That's another smaller producer you don't see as much. So
I would just note, like, there was a mag of 2017 Canon for 185, which it was a great vintage. And I think that's a really good price if you've got some time to sit on that mag. And then, going back to the Sauterne 01 Sudereau, for $80 at, like you said, 01's an epic vintage of Sauterne. $80 for a 750 is not crazy. That's a great bottle. There are two more. We've got a 2017 Chateau Les Carmes Aubryon. This one for $90, $35 cheaper than the 2015. And I would argue the 2017 is going to be a better vintage, right? And a better bottle probably than that 15. Just my personal opinion, having tasted some 17s and some 15s. Of course, my palate is not as refined as Paul Walker's. And one that I saw that I thought was really interesting, it's got great juice, 2017 Chateau Coutet. We had a 6-bottle lot OWC for $270, which I think is a tremendous deal for great stuff, a great drinking Bordeaux, and you get the original wooden case, which is really cool.
Well, you'll need to sit on it for a while, but yeah, it's still a good deal for sure.
I'm a patient man. Okay. Let's travel to Burgundy, where we've got a ton of Domaine Romani Conti coming into auction. An embarrassment of Domaine Romani Conti coming in auction.
And serious vintages too, like 93s. I flagged just a couple because I figured you were going to mention these, but 93 Echezeaux 2450, or at least it was yesterday, and 93 Romani Saint Vivant at 2800. Those were the two that I picked just because don't see 93s all that often, and it's a phenomenal red vintage from that decade, maybe eclipsed by 99, I'm not sure, but still amazing wine. So I was impressed to see all the different, not just brand new release Romani Conti in this week.
And the 93 is going for cheaper than 98.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. That doesn't really make sense to me because 93 is definitely a stronger red Berg vintage, but who knows? In fact, both the Echezeaux, I mean, Berghound 90. This always cracks me up. It's like, they get these like weak scores, but totally doesn't matter. It's like, it's not, these wines are beyond, the concern of scores.
I mean, exactly. I would also note that between the 90 and the 93 of the Saint Vivant, the 90 is going for $3,500. The 93 is going for $2,800. And the 93 actually looks like it's in better condition as well. So just something to consider that. And actually, it's actually, and the 93 is even going for less than the 2016.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, you're right. The 93 Romani Saint Vivant is definitely in better shape than 90. The 90 has signs of passivity, which will probably scare some people off. But, go for the 93 at 2,800. It's a much better deal.
The fill level looks good. And if you look at it compared to the 2016, it's not far off of the 2016.
That bottle looks killer and it's ready to drink. The 16 is not ready at all. So
no.
For the same price or $30 less, that's the way to go. Did you see the Dauphiné Meursault Goutte d'Or this week? 98 Dauphiné. I was like, woo, that's some serious. That's coastery money, right? Actually, that's more than that. I mean, 6,200. Damn, for Goutte d'Or, that's a lot. Those Dauphiné wines are just like, I mean, they're going for more than the Domaine Loire wines, the sister estate, which is mind-boggling. It's just huge price for that, but there you go. Just rare stuff.
Tremendous. By the way, 19 Georges Muneret Von Romani for $300. I thought I'd point that out just because I think Muneret makes some great stuff. One that I thought was really interesting, already got some bids. There's some Davosseau Chablis for $70.
I saw that. Was it the 17, just the Appellation Chablis? Is that right?
Yeah, it's just the Appellation Chablis. But, Davosseau for under $100 is, I mean, even, in general is not common, but I'm sure that stuff's fantastic, but it's already getting bids, right?
Yeah,
we're already seeing people engaging on that one.
Because there's a 2-pack of the 19 in France right now for $180. So, that makes sense, I guess, as well. But yeah, that did seem like a deal. That stuck out to me like it being a deal. It's like, oh, sweet. $70.
Tell me, how good of a deal is the 2017 Auspices de Beaune Premier Cru Cuvée Brunet Élevage Louis Jadot, which was a WineBid bottle, I do believe. It certainly says WineBid on it.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if that's house inventory or something that somebody bought and is reselling. Maybe they they didn't like our cuvee, so they're reselling it.
It could very well be that. We've got a 2014 Jean-Marc Boileau Puligny Montrachet Champs Canet. This one, we've got 5 of them for 120. I thought that one was sort of an interesting buy. 2014 Great White Burgundy vintage. You may disagree with that. I love the 2014.
Yeah, it's killer.
It's awesome. I don't care what you say. You can't convince me either way.
It's a great white vintage. Yeah, no, it's really good.
And then there was a 2014 Jean-Marc Pilot Chassagne Montrachet with 2 bids already on it, and that one $90. We have 5 of them, so under $100 for a 2014 Premier Cru Chassagne Montrachet.
Yeah, Verger. I see 5 of those for 90. That's not bad. I didn't see those last night. Maybe they got added late. And then, yeah, there's some 19 in as well. Interesting. Yeah, no, I kind of was sort of looking at all, well, I always pick the same things, but there's along the lines of people we talk about all the time. There's some Collamoret. I had to write this down because I was like, wait a minute, what? There's 18 Collamoret Aligoté for 120, but then you can get the Bourgogne Chardonnay for now 71. That doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, Aligoté is rare, but I would definitely pick the Chardonnay over the Aligoté myself. Then there's also 19 Bourgogne for 90. And then there is 18 Bourgogne Haute Côte de Beaune au Bout du Monde for 77, which I actually have never seen before. So some fun, interesting wines from Collamoret that are not way, way, way expensive like the Merceaus and some of the Grand Cru stuff. And then on the flip side, there is a 1990 Montgirard Meunier Richebourg for 900, which stuck out to me. Serious stuff there. 91 Meo Camuzet Nuit Saint-Georges or Morges 460 for that wine, which is quite rare. Not too surprised. That's going for, that's a lot, but still. And then again, inexpensive. And this wine you can actually find at some higher end grocery stores, but it's good. Les Héritiers de Côte-Lafon is like Côte-Lafon's sort of inexpensive label in the Macon Bussière Le Monsard at 25, which I thought was a good deal. 2020 Rouget Haute Côte de Beaune Blanc, that's got a bid at 71, or at least did last night. Might be more now. And then some more Ramonet came in this week. 95 Ramonet Batard. There's 5 of those at $5.55 a piece. So yeah, some really interesting Burgundies this week. Serious stuff all over the map.
Let's travel for just a few minutes around the rest of France before we wrap up. We've got up in Alsace, 94, a few cool Alsatian wines, 94 Ostertag Pinot Gris Munichberg SGN, 375 milliliter. This one, we've got, one of them, it already has a bid on it. 7 people tracking, went from 35 to 36. I thought $35 was a steal for this, but I'm constantly surprised at how inexpensive amazing Alsatian wine is, especially when you compare it to other French regions. And I almost don't like mentioning it, like what an amazing deal you can get on some of these great wines. Well,
that's true. I assume that's not you bidding on it also because,
it's not.
Otherwise, if you were, you probably definitely wouldn't mention it if you were bidding on it.
I definitely would not mention I was bidding on it. And then we had just a few wines from Beaujolais. We had this 2019 Marcel Lapierre Morgan, already has 2 bids at $30. I do love this producer, but I'm always a little surprised when you see recent releases that you could probably get at retail, getting bids in auction. But that being said, I love Morgan. I know you hate Gamay. You hate Cru Beaujolais. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
I don't hate Gamay. You're just being silly. There's styles of Gamay that are different that are, sometimes we can have our differences about the style in which a Gamay is produced. But no, it's great. I was recommending all kinds of cool stuff. I'm actually bidding on a mag of wine I recommended last week in the current week because it rolled over. So, and it's from Beaujolais. Imagine that. But yeah, no, I noticed that Ostertag also, because it's also an SGN wine. It's really serious stuff that's not, by any means inexpensive. Well, it's very expensive to make too for the beginning. But yeah, that was a deal. I wonder if that's going to get bid up, to somewhere around, I would expect it to go for somewhere around $50, $60. just because that seems to be more in line than 35.
Yeah, like for the amount of age on it, and just 35 just seemed like such a killer deal. One that I wanted to run by you was this 2020 Etienne Calsac Coteau Champenois, which is some Chardonnay from Champagne. And it was kind of funny because I was reading a tasting note and somebody was like, when I was tasting this, I thought it was supposed to be sparkling. And so I thought it had just gone flat. And
did they think that when they saw that there wasn't a champagne cork on the bottle itself, or
that was my thought process.
I mean, it has a wax top. It's a standard cork. Yeah,
it's got a wax top. Like, what did you like? How did you think this had just gone flat? Like, that didn't make any sense.
That doesn't make sense. That's poor form.
But that one looks super interesting at $60.
Yeah, we mentioned some of these a few weeks back. There was actually some other Calsac wine in the auction. A friend of mine actually, I think, got one of these. So I'm excited to try it for sure, because that's interesting stuff. And there's been kind of a trickling of Coteau Champenois wines in just over the last couple of months. I feel like every week there's like a new example, and they don't last. They're pretty rare, so there's a lot of interest in them. But I've tasted Etienne Calsac wines, but not the still wines. So that should be delicious Chardonnay.
I'll only mention a couple of other things. This non-vintage La Rogerie Grand Cru La Grand Vie for $50, which already has some action on it, some really interesting champagne. And then we've got two wines coming in from Jura. Both have bids. Shocker. Again, this goes back to my...
exactly. Once again, we talk about Ganavat. There's very inexpensive Ganavat in this week, I should mention. It started at $20. Yeah, for now. That's right. There's 4 of them. It's at 24. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it goes.
Next week we'll be talking about like, hey, I hammered at $400 or something like that, right?
That would be a little bit wild. I don't think it's going to go for too much more, because I don't think it's terrifically expensive, to begin with. But yeah, Cremant de Jura, that's kind of cool. And Ganavat's obviously very collectible. So that's a fun wine. We'll see what happens there. I actually noticed there was some great stuff in. There's some Lec Lepar, 2015 Lec Lepar, Pas d'Ossé, Premier Cru Blanc de Blanc, L'Artiste 130, Frederic Savard, which is awesome stuff. There's a bottle of the Dormant Père et Fils Ephemer Blanc de Noir 90. There's some Marie Noël Ledru Grand Cru Brut at 220. That stuff's pretty seriously collectible. And then there's a mag of 90 of Clicquot Rosé, the Reserve Rosé, which is just amazing wine at 360. I didn't think that was too bad for a mag of that stuff. And yeah, some great things from, if you got a second, I know you got to run. I was going to skip around. There's a really very sort of always very expensive Languedoc wine in that kind of boggles my mind. But the Grange des Pères, there's a red and there's probably multiple labels, but there's, known for red and white. And there's a bottle of the white 15, the Leroy Blanc in right now, 270, that stuck out because it's always extremely expensive. And there's some Carte de Chaume from Loire Valley. I'm skipping all over the country here, but 97 and 02. 02 is actually a great vintage in the Loire. It was difficult in a lot of other parts of France, but especially Châteauneuf. But anyway, there's 97 and 02 Carte de Chaume, 80 for the 97 and 65 for the 02. That's just deliciously fantastic. Chenin Blanc lasts a long, long time. It's very, very good. Bottle of 02, speaking of 02, Dagenot Silex for 290. This is when Didier was still around. So that stuff's getting rarer and rarer. Great wine. There's a bottle from Cassis, actually. I noticed there was a 6-pack, a half case of Clos Saint Magdalene, dry white wine from Cassis, way down on the coast near Marseille, which we don't see too often. It's probably better known for its creme de Cassis. But anyway, a half case of that at $30 a piece. That was cool. And then let's see, from the Rhone, lots of interesting things. 85 Ogier Grand Cuvée Châteauneuf for 65. I thought that wasn't too expensive for 1985. Interesting looking bottle too. And then some great Burgos Côte Rôtie. There's 3 bottles, it looks like, 2 different lots at 210 each. 1990 Burgo Cote Rôtie, that is. And then some seriously amazing collection of Guigal Cote Rôties as well, including
a ton of Guigal.
Well, including the 78 La Landon, which is like unbelievable. That's also an unbelievable price. It's $24.15. But then 88 La Molina La Turque I also selected because they're just incredible wines. I was lucky enough to taste a couple of those a while ago, and they're amazing. So 88 La Molina at $960 and 88 La Turque at $950. And then some 98 Jasmin Cote Rôtie I picked for $115. And then 05 Ucelio Cuvée Monaïol Chateauneuf, I didn't think was expensive at $65 each. So those are my Rhone pick for the day.
Well, and with that, I'm going to wrap us up. So this has been Finally Hammered with Paul Walker and Jeff McGurran. Wishing you happy bidding and cheers. Thanks, everyone.